All right, everybody, we are back. It is week 2 of the Football Friday Night podcast presented by Sun City Sitrep. We did it last week. We're back at it again this week, and we have a ton to talk about. No lightning delays here on this show. We're back at it here for week 2, and lightning delays galore here in week number 1 for Texas high school football in the city of El Paso. It was an exciting week 1. It's just excited to get back out there. Football Friday Night was great, hosted by Bo Bagley, Paul McKinnon on 600 ESPN El Paso. You can catch the show every single week, presented by VP Marketing, Warrior Allegiance, and of course the great people here at Sun City Sitrep. I'm joined by my co-host Zay Galindo here today for week number 2. It's our second podcast talking high school football. Zay, reactions after week 1. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Lightning, it's the best team in El Paso. It's been the best team in El Paso for 3 straight years. So the weather, is undefeated. But we had some good games. We had some blowouts like we expected. I'm just glad that we have this thing back to, rolling.
Me too, man. I'm really excited because you came up with our leading topic here in our leading segment here on the program today. Overreaction or valid reaction? And if people know both Adrian and Zay, it's number one, we overreact to a lot of things, but we do it out of almost jest and excitement when it comes to the new season and when it comes to high school football and any kind of sports really that we're covering. And it's always kind of funny to look at different reactions or different takes that you could have on it. So we're going to go back and forth and we're going to kind of react to each other's overreactions or valid reactions. So it's up to the other person to decide whether this is an overreaction or valid reaction. And so I am the alum from this school. I'm going to start off with a big time overreaction or valid reaction. Here you go, Zay. I don't think Franklin's going to lose a game this year.
That's a valid reaction. I mean, they looked so good against Chapin. They dominated them flat out, went through that lightning delay. They didn't miss a step. They came out. Ernie Powers looks insane. He looks so much faster, stronger, quicker than he did last year. And by the way, last year he ran for over 2,000 yards. So, that's how scary this team is. You saw that offensive line. They're huge. They look like a big time, unit, not only in El Paso, but in the state. And that's almost rare for an El Paso team to have that type of size in the trenches. So that's a valid reaction in my opinion.
They have a buzzsaw of an opponent this weekend against Del Valle. It's our Warrior Allegiance game of the week. We're going to get to the preview of this game here later on. And I think there's a lot of ways you could look at it. But frankly, I mean, they just looked outstanding in week 1. 301 rushing yards for Ernie Powers, their star senior running back. He's coming into his own. Everybody, I just ask opponents about him. I ask coaches about him. And everybody says the same thing. Speed, speed, speed. And you expect that from a guy who has the track experience like Ernie Powers does. The great part about Ernie Powers is he comes from a lineage of football talent out of the Powers family. David, Steven, Patrick, even Richard played at one time too. They all played for Franklin. They all starred for the Cougars, all had an opportunity to play some football at this level. This team right here is definitely dangerous going into this year. I just think when you have a workhorse running back like that, I think the passing game still has some work to do, and I think they'll get to that point at some point this year. Mixed with the new head coach, I mean, coaching does a lot. Ruben Torres, he's injected a lot of life into that team. Was really impressed with the sideline, the demeanor that they had against Chapin. They weren't getting overly excited. It was just kind of properly excited for everything that they were doing, and that's my first one. So you go ahead, you swing out your next one. Overreaction or valid reaction? Go ahead.
Overreaction or valid reaction? Eastlake will lose 2 games in District 1, 2 or more games in District 160.
Wow, I didn't think we would go Eastlake. So now you already stumped me. You already accomplished what you were looking for. It's stumping me right away. Let's go. I mean, go through the gauntlet, right? If you're having to go through Franklin, if you're having to play teams like Pebble Hills, who both look great week 1, I think those 2 right there, if I had to pick my district favorites or teams that I thought would look really impressive out of week 1, those are the teams right there. I think what we learned from week 1 is that maybe the Falcons took a bit of a step back on defense this year. I just say this, look, it is week 1. They have have a ton of time to grow. They have a ton of time to continue to improve. So I'm going to say for right now, valid reaction based on what we saw. They gave up 50 points to Bel Air in week 1. Some people are argue like, hey, look, that game was over by the second half. Like they just, Bel Air was just scoring as they could, but Eastlake had control of that game. Like people could argue that one. I mean, we're going to learn a little bit more about Eastlake this week. Odessa Permian on the road. And that brings me to my next overreaction or valid reaction. Pebble Hills wins the first out-of-town matchup out of any team out of the 915 here this weekend. Pebble Hills with a big matchup. They've got Midland High on the road. I think the Spartans go out there and I think they win. I got Pebble Hills winning the first out-of-town matchup out of any team in the 915.
I think that's a valid reaction. I was expecting more overreactions in these first couple ones, but these make sense to me. Midland High, they lost a couple of guys. Elijah McCoy, he's at UTEP now. He's their star running back. I think he ran for well over 2,000 yards last year. Pebble Hills lost that game. It wasn't close, but it was a somewhat of a tight one. I think they can win it. We saw that connection, LJ Bailey, Joe Fernandez. That's a connection that we're going to be hearing about for at least another year. And I think that's because, look, Joe Fernandez, I think, is QB2. LJ Bailey is the best receiver in El Paso. They have more weapons that we haven't even talked about. Their defense has looked a lot better. I think they can win that matchup, and it'd be huge just for the city of El Paso, just to make the competition look better. Anytime you can beat a team, especially in those 2-6A region, right? That Lubbock, Odessa, Midland, that little region right there, they always have, El Paso's number. So if you can beat a team like that, it'd be huge, and I think they can do it.
Well, the caveat to this, and you got to put an asterisk on this game right here, Joe Fernandez is not going to play the first half. He got a personal foul penalty. He got thrown out of the game against Canutillo. And if I'm not mistaken, I thought I heard our reporter Angel Torres say that LJ Bailey is facing kind of the same issue right there, the same half suspension. So if those two guys come in the second half, we're talking about Pebble Hills maybe having to play a little bit of comeback. I still like them in that sense, and I also still like their defense. I mean, they've got a lot of dudes all over the place. They got a great kicker in Malucci. Like they've got some players all over that Pebble Hill Spartans football field. And on the flip side for Eastlake, you go out on the road and play a team like Odessa Permian, they have a great chance to beat them too. And that's going to be an excellent matchup here coming up. That one's actually a Thursday matchup. So that one's going to be a really interesting one to keep an eye on too. If the Falcons could go out there, a team that, who knows, they might even play in the 6A by-district round of the playoffs. So that's always a team that you have to kind of keep your eye out for. So I like that one right there. I'm circling both games. Pebble Hills on the road, Eastlake on the road. Who's going to be that first team to win that out-of-town matchup here for the next one? So go ahead. Your third, or your second, I should say, overreaction or valid reaction?
Yeah, and then going back to the Eastlake lost to Permian twice last year. Start of the year in the SAC one, end of the year by district round in the SAC one as well. So they're looking for revenge. Now my second one, I have a few different ones. I'm going through them. I think the one that I want to make that we need to talk about is overreaction, valid reaction. Coronado won't make the playoffs.
Wow, we are already opening up the Band-Aid. I thought we wouldn't get to this conversation till week 3. I guess let's do it, right? I'm going to say I'm going to bet on this team, and I'm going to say this is an overreaction, okay? I'm going to say there's a lot of season left, and that's me being I'm putting the nice Adrian hat on and saying that this is correctable. No Sal Duarte this first game, who's going to be their leading rusher, their star running back. You're running it back with Montillon at the running back position. I think a tandem between Duarte and Montillon is what this squad wants moving forward. Defensively, I think TJ Spilliart could still do it for him. He plays at a really high level. I didn't see Chase Golding in the stat sheet either, but that's a playmaker too. When he's on the field, he could really show what he could do. Younger brother of Kason Golding, obviously, who shined last year for the Coronado varsity football team. At the quarterback position, Wes Stansbury, I mean, he's going to need developing throughout the season, and I believe in his development. I truly do. I think that if that line can hold up a little bit better than what we saw week 1 against Americas, if they can throw out there a little bit more firepower, I want this team. I don't think they're going to peak here in non-district. I think we're going to have a lot of question marks on them, non-district play. But I think once district play hits, I want to bet on Mike Pry. I want to bet on Coronado, and I want to think that they're going to try to turn things around to do enough to get into the playoffs, because this is the year. This is the window of opportunity. It's this year right here in 2025 for Coronado. They need to win this year. Pressure's on them in a way because they hadn't done it in the past 2 seasons. You got to do it this year in a crowded and tough 1-6A, right? Like, who do you boot out? Do you just boot out Montwood just because they lost to Del Valle? Do you just boot out Eastwood because they still have a lot of new players on their team? Do you boot out one of the other big dogs and think that, hey, maybe could they slide at some point down the season? I don't know. That's going to be a tough one right there. I'm going to just call it overreaction simply because I want to bet on this team. I just want to say that, like, Coronado, they're not the best. Better football is still yet to come, and I'm betting on the process and development of Wes Stansbury. And I could be eating my words here by week 5, Zay, and Coronado has to face Franklin, and that game doesn't look great. So, good one right there. I'm going to give you another one. Overreaction or valid reaction? This one might get you off this chair here at the Sun City Sitrep Studios. America's 5A Division I champs.
You know what? This one was in mine. This one, it's not worded the same, but mine was El Dorado isn't the favorite anymore, and I think that's an overreaction. I think maybe Americas can give El Dorado a run for their money. They might even beat them, right? They have that round robin schedule, so they might pick up a win here, but I still think Americas is susceptible to losing a game that they shouldn't in district play. So maybe losing to a Bel Air, losing to a Parkland. I think El Dorado is the more complete team. They have more experience, and they have Ryan Estrada. I think at the end of the day, when you have a guy like that and you have a district that I think is probably one of the weakest in El Paso, I think there's no way they don't win that district still. Okay. I'm still rocking out with El Dorado.
Okay. I think it's a bit of an overreaction too, even when I wrote it down. I'm going to base this off 2 things. I love the defense by Americas, and I think a little bit of that was not, Coronado not having their full complement of players, but their defense is much improved from last year. And number 2, Emiliano Gonzalez, man. I didn't know this guy. I love week 1 because we get to hear and we get to see players that we don't really know a lot about. Emiliano Gonzalez leading the charge at the quarterback position. He was throwing some dimes out there, Zay, and it's not all Cam Johnson. We were talking all last week about Americas and saying Cam Johnson this, Cam Johnson that. Now you're talking about a lot of weapons around him. He's got a receiver. He's got another running back behind him. Noe Robles has put some nice pieces together with Americas. I feel like they're trending upward. Can they catch El Dorado on the wrong night? Yes, like you said, maybe they split the series, or maybe they sweep the series, and maybe there's a way they can win this outright. But I'm just going to defend that one just for the sole purpose of it being kind of a fun take here week after just week 1 of the season. And to all the people out there who are listening to this, we know it's just week 1. There's a lot more that needs to happen throughout the season for us to learn a little bit more about all these teams. So go ahead, give me your last one here for overreaction or valid reaction.
Okay, overreaction, valid reaction. You were at this game. Is Chapin in trouble?
Yes. There's no overreaction to this. This is a valid reaction, and the answer is yes, they're in trouble. Chapin has a bit of an identity problem offensively. That's what I can see right away. I feel like they have to figure out what their identity is on offense in order to move forward, and then defensively, they just simply get worn out. I mean, the trenches worries me moving forward. Like, I'm even worried about, could this team miss the playoffs in a division, or a district that I just put it in pen? Like, they're winning, they're getting to the playoffs in this district, but now I'm even worried about those kind of things right there. Like, I just think when you're talking about scoring the football and getting the ball into the end zone, I get it. Look, it's week 1, man. It was a long lightning delay. How much urgency was out there after that big lightning delay right there? So I want to give a bit of excuses, and I want to give some grace to that Chapin squad. But losing 41-8, like last year's team didn't do that against a Franklin team that you could argue maybe the same talent level, maybe a little bit less talent level, but still it fought. The Chapin squad last year really fought in that game against Franklin, and this time around, I don't think it was even close. Like, you could see the talent gap between those two teams. And honestly, I was surprised that Chapin even scored. Your thoughts on Chapin?
Yeah, I think, just going back to last year's team, I think if I'm not wrong, I think they got obliterated. I think it was 56-14 at Franklin.
I think you're right. No, I think you're right. I think it was close at the beginning. I think it was blowout by the end.
Yeah, and I just think that look, Franklin, I had them winning that game regardless. I think that Chapin's gonna go through, like you said, that identity crisis, and they didn't look good at all, right? Let's just put it like that. They need to get the ball to Davion in more creative ways, right? The handoffs up the middle, that just isn't gonna work. Especially what we saw, like you said, they got manhandled in the trenches. But for all the high school football, aficionados in El Paso, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Chapin has ever missed the playoffs. Even the bad years, they were in the four-team division where they just made the playoffs regardless. So in their 25 years, they've never missed the playoffs, and I don't think this is the year either. I think I'm gonna go with overreaction. I don't think Chapin is in trouble. I think that once they get their feet under them, once they play, the Jeffs, the El Paso Highs, get some confidence up, we'll be looking at maybe a 6-win team.
Okay. Any other overreactions or valid reactions you want to throw out there? Any other honorable mentions? These were our top 3-ish. Any honorable mentions or any other ones you want to throw out there?
I'm thinking. I thought of some, but I'll go with this one. Isleta wins 1-4-8.
Yeah, that's a great one. I had that one written down too, and I was thinking about bringing up Isleta because they look solid. I mean, look, Austin doesn't have as much talent, but they're going to grind you out. It's going to go down to that. Austin, Isleta, we're going to have to just put that one in a big circle and try to figure out who's going to win. I just don't think Riverside, despite having my favorite player in 4A, Carlos Rojas III, I just don't think they're there yet talent-wise. I think they're probably playing third fiddle to those two squads. And you're looking at Riverside. You're looking at Austin, and then you're looking at Isleta kind of going for that big 4A title when it's all said and done. And you know what? Honestly, it might end up being Austin when it's all said and done because they can grind you out in a game. They're going to win 13-7 in just a grimy type of game that lasts only 90 minutes because they just run the ball every down. That's the type of games they like to win. And that's the one I'm circling right there. Isleta versus Austin, probably for that district moving forward. But I think if you put Isleta there at the top of that district, I feel pretty good about that one right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, man, I still want to believe in Riverside. I mean, they've been such a good team out of 4 the past couple of years. And like you said, when you have a guy like Carlos Rojas on your team, just give him the ball and let him work, right?
Yes.
Especially in 4A. So I think they're still going to have something to say, and I can see them tripping up an Isleta or, an Austin, especially considering, the rivalry between those two teams, right? Riverside, Isleta, always going to be a good game. So, it'll be a fun district like it always is, but it's gotten so much better over the years. And, shout out Lower Valley football, Del Valle, Riverside, Isleta, all with week 1 wins.
Yeah, there you go. Let's go to one of our newest segments here on the show. We're talking about the Football Friday Night Power Poll. Next week, we'll get a full complement of all of our reporters chiming in on this one right here. But to just jump into it, Zay, you love to do power polls in the city of El Paso. Give me your 6 through 10 here, and then we'll count down the top 5 teams so far going into week 2 of Texas high school football here in El Paso.
Yeah, so week 1 was hard. Week one, some teams just look bad. It was hard. I'll be honest. It was hard to compile 10 teams to really make up this poll because there was just some games that were just like, ugh, leave a bad taste in your mouth. But I'll give you 8 through 10.
Okay.
Starting off at number 10, I went with the Andrus Eagles. I think that they battled a good El Dorado team at home. Looked a lot better. Our reporter Steve Escada was out there. He had some good things to say about them. He said that defense looks a lot better. They stopped, Estrada for a little bit, as much as you can stop a guy like that. And I think for a team like Andrus, you can take what you get against an El Dorado, and you only lose by I think it was 2 scores. Obviously, that offense needs to be better. They didn't put up as much points as I expected them to, but I think that'll come with time. I still am a big believer in that offense, big believer in that team, and that's why I have them at number 10, even after the loss. All right, number 9 is Hanks. I don't think they looked incredible against, a subpar Irvin team, but when you have the talent that they have, Austin Dusher at running back, he looks so much better than he did last year. And that's saying something because he was really, really good last year as a sophomore. And they have that trio, offensively that I'm excited for. But they need to clean some things up before I put them higher because they could have been higher with, a 56-0 victory.
Right.
But, that's how it goes. Number 8, I have Canutillo. They lose to Pebble Hills, but they did, they had some fight in them. Looked a lot better. That game could have gotten so much more uglier than it was.
Okay.
So I'll keep them at number 8 simply because look, they looked more complete towards the end of the game, and the rest of the teams just didn't look good. They're at number 8 because simply there's not enough teams to really say, hey,
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And you kind of give it the benefit of the doubt. It's the Scott Brooks factor. You just get plus 2 on the rankings list, knowing that you're winning the day with the coach right there. So I like those that you picked right there. Give me 7, 6, and 5.
So number 7, I have Eastwood. Not much to take away from a game like that.
Yeah.
You're playing against St. John Bosco. You don't completely write that game off, but it's just like, okay, got that out of the way. It was a cool experience for them. It's a cool thing to do, but I'm not going to take away much from a game like that. I have a number 7. I had them at number 7 last week. Number 6, I have Americas. They were my biggest mover. They went from unranked to number 6 simply because, wow, man, they looked really, really good. I know I said that they are not going to win, their district, but man, that doesn't mean they didn't look good against a Coronado team I had pretty high up as well. Now, like you said, Coronado was missing some guys, especially defensive on both sides of the ball, really. But man, it's good to see America's back in and looking like the team that they've been the past few years. So I have them at number 6, and right above them is their district rival El Dorado, who picked up a road win at Andrus, which is a tough thing to do. It's a long travel. It's a game that people looked at maybe, Andrus can trip up El Dorado, but they fought through adversity, fought through a thunder, rain delay, lightning delay, and they were able to grind out the win, and that's a good thing to see. So that's my 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to say is I actually did not give enough praise to Bryson Booth. I mean, that kid can sling it for El Dorado, a really good quarterback in that district. I gave a lot of credit to Emiliano Gonzalez. I got to give credit to Bryson Booth. He definitely showed up this past week against a squad like Austin. So like the pick right there for El Dorado, and like the fact that they're number 5. Said Austin, I meant Andrus, but you know what I mean. Let's go 4 through 1. Let's do your top 4.
Okay, number 4, I have Eastlake. They were my number 1 going into the year. I thought they were going to be the best team in the city, but they gave up 50 points to a team that hasn't won a game in 677 days.
There you
in
go.
Bel Air.
There
and
it is.
That's not Bel Air is going to be so much better, and they're going to get that win this year, possibly this week. We were talking about it, probably this week. They looked a lot better, but man, for an Eastlake team that ran the table, their defense has been their calling card the past couple years. To give up 50 points against Bel Air, like you said, maybe that game was over, but I mean, regardless, that first quarter, I think Bel Air put up 21 points. So that's sounding the alarms for me that I had to drop them from 1 to 4.
I think what you can take away from this next top 3, that's going to be made up of Franklin, Del Valle, and Pebble Hills in whatever order you have it, is that these 3 are interchangeable. Like I could sit here and make an argument and make excuses for all these teams to be number 1 or any of these teams to be number 3. So go ahead and give me your ranking for these 3, because I'm excited that these are your top 3.
So number 3, I have Del Valle. I think that they jumped. They were at number 4 last week. It was a good win over Mount Wood. Anytime you beat a 6A team as a 5A team, it's big, but we all expected them to win. Maybe not everybody expected them to dominate the way they did, but I expected them to win. They took care of business. They went out. They did their thing. Jake Fetty didn't have to show too much. He did exactly what we want him to do. Dominated in the time he was in the game. So this week, it's a huge matchup. They're going to be taking on Franklin, and they can make me eat my words. I have them at 3. I have them under Franklin. If they go out there and beat Franklin, man, that's back-to-back years taking down a good Cougar team. So they have a shot to get on top of the board over the Cougars. But for now, I have them at number 3. Number 2, Pebble Hills. I have Pebble Hills at number 2. Spartans take down Canutillo. They get revenge for that 7-0 loss last year. And we've already talked about it. LJ Bailey, Joe Fernandez, that whole team, they're really well-rounded. They're well-rounded. I think that they're a good team. It sucks that they're not going to have, some of their best players in that first half this week, but I am at number 2. They look good. I was high on this team in the offseason. I'm high on them now. But at number 1, I couldn't put anybody but Franklin. Just because I saw them in person, they looked insane. First play of the game, JB, the linebacker, boom, on Davion, and it's dead silent at Irvin. At Tony Shaw Memorial Field, no one's talking. All you can hear is just yelling like a madman, and it's like this team strikes fear into other teams' hearts. This Franklin team, it's gonna sound like I'm too much, but no, I'm serious. This team, it'll strike fear in you. And they're the undisputed number 1 in my opinion.
Okay, I like the picks. I like the top 3, and I like your top 10 period. So let's just jump into it because I want to talk a little bit more about Franklin Del Valle extensively. It's our Warrior Allegiance game of the week. It's already game of the year kind of potential, right? Like if both these teams are atop their own districts, we might look back on this game thinking this was the game of the year. I hope it's back and forth. I hope it's high energy. And the fun thing was last year, I think you could make a case going into Del Valle Franklin that Del Valle was the favorites and they were on the road going to Franklin. Think this time around, if you had to pick a favorite on either side, you might consider Franklin a favorite on the road going to Del Valle. Does it happen the same way? Here's my don't take Jake Fetty for granted segment, right? Jake Fetty is so impressive on 3rd and long. 3rd and long, this guy looks like, it's 3rd and 3, dude. He's ready to go. He's ready to sling it. He is his best when his back is against the wall and he's asked to do a little bit more because he could look at his receivers and find a guy who's open and hit them in a 3rd and long situation, or he could scramble outside the pocket and just create it himself. The difference that you brought up is that there's a Franklin defense on the other side, a really talented squad that created a turnover against Chapin. Can they create more against a talented and experienced group like Del Valle? I was also impressed with in that first week for Del Valle, their run game. Their run game was impressive. Vizcata on the ground, Aichison on the ground. They have these 2 different running backs who can mix it up and be pretty, lethal for them. The worry for me comes mostly on their defensive side, and I think they could disguise some blitzes against Franklin's Lucas Garza, and I think they could get to him in a significant way over the course of this matchup. I'm just worried about that defense getting gashed for that 70-yard Ernie Powers run, or getting gashed for a big 55-yard run for Ernie Powers, and that could happen. There could be those explosive plays on the ground by Franklin against this Del Valle defense. On the flip side, let's talk a little bit more about Del Valle. They have a squad here and a coaching staff that has been a part of big games, right? On the other side, you have Ruben Torres, first-year head coach, and that coaching staff still gelling and still understanding how each other works. I like the fact that they've got a coaching staff at Del Valle where they've done a lot of these big games. They've played Franklin before at their highest, at their lowest, like with talent around them, without talent around them. They've done this before. So how does this all play into this week? I mean, it's a thriller of a non-district matchup in my eyes.
It really is, and it's exciting to see Jake Fetty in this type of game this early into the season because, in all honesty, Franklin is a 6A team, right? But, in the playoffs, in the Texas State playoffs, Franklin is kind of similar to, a pretty solid 5A team that Del Valle could see in the area round, or they can see in the bi-district round. So this is a big game feel, like you said, and it's a game that Jake Fetty is going to have to, they're going to ask him to do a lot, like you said, and I want to see if he can step up to that mark because it's such a high mark. I really like this Del Valle team, but I don't like them as much as this Franklin team. I think that talent on that side of the ball, on both sides of the ball for the Cougars, is just so much that we're going to see, can Jake Fetty almost not single-handedly lead this Conquistadors team to a win, but he's going to have to do a lot, man. I mean, that defense I'm really worried about once Franklin starts scoring, because I think that they're going to score a lot. Can Jake Fetty and his team respond, and can that Del Valle defense get a crucial stop on 3rd down? And, I just think that right now I have the Cougars as the favorite, but it wouldn't shock me to see Del Valle win this game. It really wouldn't, just because you have Jake Fetty and just because that team, they looked a lot better than they did in the scrimmage that I saw them against Pebble Hills. So, I'm excited about it. I can't wait to be listening to the updates, because I think it's going to be much closer than it was last year. I think it was a 10-point Del Valle
Yeah.
win last year. I think it's going to be much closer, and I think it's going to be much more high scoring. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I remember last year too. They got Shelton Fuller on that Del Valle team, so it's like, yeah, how much does that knock you up on the totem pole and stuff like that? And they believe they've got D1 talent aside from Jake Fetty. Like you talk to that coaching staff at Del Valle, and they love Dylan Gonzalez, they love Josiah Nunez. Those guys have really stepped up. The Viscata brothers have really killed it. Santi Baez, who's kind of like a hybrid linebacker pass rusher. Like they've got some guys on that team for Del Valle. So I'm ready for it. Get the popcorn out, get the lobster and steak out at the press box at Del Valle, and let's rock with that one. I can't wait for it. Other games to highlight from week 2. I want to hit this one. You're going to be at this one. Eastwood Chapin. What do we expect from this one right here? I mean, we didn't get much from the Huskies. I'll tell you this, we might have more lightning this week. There's also rain in the forecast this week, so it could be a wet game, could be kind of that rainy, stormy type of game. What do we even expect from both teams? Eastwood Chapin coming up here Friday.
Yeah, I really have no clue what to expect from the Troopers. Just because I think they only return. I think it was like 7 guys on both sides. No, they only returned 4 guys on both sides of the ball, I think. So that's like 7 new starters on both sides of the ball, and I think that's a lot of question marks. But I trust Julio. I trust Julio. I think they're gonna have that team rolling. The Huskies, on the other hand, I also don't know what to expect. Are you going to make drastic changes after what happened against Franklin? Or are you going to continue to rock with what you got, see if you can just make little tweaks here and there to make the offense look more aggressive at times, to make it look more, well-oiled? I'm excited to see what both teams have in store for this game because it's a big game for both teams. Chapin loses, you're 0-2 again for the second straight year, but this time, it's like, okay, this is Davion's last year. We got to get it rolling. Versus if Eastwood loses, well, that's a pretty big upset, right? The Troopers go 0-2. They lose to a Chapin team that just got obliterated by Franklin. Now you're saying, are we in danger of missing, the playoffs for a second straight year? So it's a big game for both teams. I'm excited about it. So much talent on both sides of the ball. And I just want to see big plays from both teams, man. I feel like we only saw Franklin in that game against Chapin get those big time fun plays. I think both teams are capable of having those big explosive ones, and I think whoever has more is going to win the game.
Top games that we're not talking about, they're kind of dark horse games of the weeks, and I say this plural because I got 2 for you: Coronado at Andress and Montwood at Coronado or Canutillo. I like both of these matchups right here. And the Eagles on one side, they've got something with a quarterback running back tandem that I kind of saw over the week. And then you always just factor, I said it earlier, but the Scott Brooks effect. They're always going to be strong, hard nosed defensively. Montwood has some question marks, although I do like their quarterback Damian Briano. He can sling it. He can get it to some of his weapons. And Gene Palmer was a nice addition for this squad. I mean, at the running back position, he could definitely move the ball for them. I like Canutillo in that matchup at home. They're the home squad. I like them over a 1-6A squad. I'd be shocked to see this team lose back-to-back weeks. We just hardly see that despite any kind of talent discrepancy between Canutillo year over year. The Coronado Andress game, I've got Andress in this matchup right here. I got them knocking off the Coronado Thunderbirds again. We talked about it before, but Coronado's missing a couple guys. Andress has seemed like they've figured some things out in that week 1 loss against El Dorado. And for the Golden Eagles, can they beat this Coronado team who's going to probably throw a couple different explosive plays at them? Can they weather the storm? Because at one point, Coronado's going to have this lead. It could be something gross like 10-0 or maybe like 13-0 or something like that. Can they weather the storm and mentally stay in this game in order to win it? And I kind of like the Eagles to bounce back if at any point they're hitting some adversity, rally back and maybe pull off a win here at home.
Yeah, and I'll start off with that Andress game since we're already talking about it. I also have the Eagles, the Golden Eagles, just because, like you said, Coronado's missing some guys, and I do think I agree with you. At some point, Coronado's gonna have that lead, and it's gonna come down to how does Andress face that adversity? How does Andress come back from a 10-0, 10-3 type of game, and they're going to need to run the ball. Like you said, the weather's going to be probably a big factor. You're not probably going to be able to pass the ball a lot, and that definitely favors Coronado. I think they're I want to say they're better in the trenches, but I really don't know at this point. I think that Andrus team, they look a lot better. Like I've said in the past, I'm high on them, like I said. So I have them winning that game. I think they're going to get an explosive play maybe in the second half, and maybe that opens the floodgates. That can even turn into a blowout. But, I don't want to speak too soon, and we're talking about next week. Coronado just obliterates them. So I don't know. And then that Canantillo game, I'm confident the Eagles will win that one. It's hard to win on the blue turf. Mount Wood, good team, like Brianna as well. But you're traveling all the way to the west side of El Paso to play, the Brooks factor. I kind of have to just go with Canantillo winning by probably 2 scores.
Okay. I think it's going to be a good week too. Great games all across the board. I love non-district play. I think this is always that fun time of year to kind of see where teams are at. I get a little bit of 2024 into this year. Maybe we're going to see top-heavy teams in each districts. I hope we see more competitiveness across these non-district matchups and not as many blowouts, and please, not as many lightning delays here this week. That's the biggest thing. Mother Nature, she's got to be on our side this week for week 2 here for Texas high school football action. But that'll do it for us here today. For Zay Galindo, I'm Adrian Broaddus. This is the week 2 edition of the Football Friday Night Podcast presented by Sun City Sitrep. We'll be back in action next week, week 3 action, and things really starting to heat up in week 3. So we'll be back at it next week. Thanks for listening to us, and make sure you subscribe to Sun City Sitrep on YouTube.